I prefer the lonely places, wandering behind a pair of bird dogs in search of what's over the next hill. My passion for upland hunting has led me to multiple states. These travels have allowed me to see the beauty of this great land and meet some interesting people. I hope to introduce you to many of those people and encourage you to look for what's over your next hill. Today I'm talking with Scott Grush of Lincoln, Michigan about Michigan grouse and woodcock hunting. Scott is the Ruffed Grouse Society's regional director for Michigan. The podcast is sponsored by Pike Gear. An upland hunter who hunts hard needs clothing that is light, makes hunting easier, not harder. An upland hunter is always on the move and always thinking about his next move. He needs clothing that can move with him, clothing that doesn't hold him back or weigh him down. Pike Gear is designed for upland hunters who are always on the go and always dreaming about their next hunting trip. Visit pikegear.com to find the best upland hunting clothing you'll ever wear. Follow Pike Gear on Facebook and Instagram. Additionally, I've picked up a new sponsor, JM Knives. John Moore makes custom knives to order. He recently made me a beautiful and effective Cocobolo handled bird knife. They make you a custom order knife you'll be proud to show your hunting partners. Contact me on Instagram for John's contact information. Scott, why don't you tell folks a little about yourself?
Sure thing, Ryan. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm the regional director for Lower Michigan and the Eastern UP. That means I oversee about 20 chapters. I am member support, if you will, for them, kind of a liaison between all of our Michigan membership and headquarters. Mainly I'm in charge of fundraising that supports the mission of the Ruffed Grouse Society, healthy forest, abundant wildlife, and our conservation ethic. Like you said, I live in Lincoln, Michigan. I've been up here. I'm in the northeast corner of the Lower Peninsula. Michiganders, we all carry a map on our hand, right? So if you look at the back of your left hand, I'm pretty much up by the first knuckle on your index finger. So
okay.
I'm way up in the northeast corner there. Great country up here, right on the edge of the Huron National Forest. And it's just great living up here in grouse and woodcock country.
Well, I hunted recently up in your neck of the woods. I was in the Upper Peninsula for a period of time. What was it, last week with Brent Pike of Pike Gear and some other fellows you might know, Mike Carmody and Bob Zinn. And they took me down south of the bridge for the first time.
Okay.
And I'm gonna Google it right quick, but I gotta find the place. But yeah, I promise it can't be very far from you.
Yeah. How'd you like crossing that bridge?
Oh yeah, I've gone over a couple of the last 3 years. Drove over it. When did I drive over it? Last year, at like 3:00 in the morning. And the wind was blowing, probably 50 miles an hour. They had it where we could only one person could come across at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was driving over it and it was snowing and the wind was blowing and the wind would push me across the lanes,
Yeah.
Boy.
Sometimes it's escort only.
They were escorting the big trucks, but they didn't escort me. So much public land up there. So much public land, and I don't on the map see where we were at. I think we were somewhere in the neighborhood of Gaylord.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
Right there in the kind of the central part of the lower peninsula.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, I of course had spent time in the Upper Peninsula in years past, and really, really enjoy my time up there. Beautiful country.
How'd you guys do when you came south?
We found birds. They were super, super spooky. So I think maybe they'd been chased a little bit more than the birds that we chased in the Upper Peninsula. And it seemed like bird populations maybe weren't as strong this year as what they have been the last couple of years. But I only had a snapshot.
Right.
When I was there, but We hunted later this year than we've hunted in years past. Usually we're there prior to leaf drop.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I noticed this year was the birds would get up so early. I mean, they were so super hard to get close to.
Yeah, it's been, I think the next 3 years are going to be better, than you've seen the last couple years. I think we're coming into a peak here in, the mythical, I'm making air quotes here, the mythical cycle, which I do believe in. I'm a cycle advocate, and believer. And, they say that moves, west to east in the lake states. So, Minnesota and Wisconsin's going to hit the peak in the cycle before Michigan does. And it'll creep its way, over into, New York and keep going. But, I think the next 3 years, I think we're probably going to hit, Michigan usually hits a peak in the cycle in years that end in 0 or 1. So if you're traveling a trip to Michigan, next 2 years it's a green light for you. So come on. Yeah, come to Michigan and see us. I think, so with that said, if 21 is going to be the peak in the cycle, you're going to have, a year on either side of the peak is an awfully good year to chase birds. It's, and Woodcock reports all across the state Woodcock are very solid this year. I'm also a volunteer Woodcock bander for the Michigan DNR. I've been doing that for 11 years now, and this year, for the first time in 5 or 6 years, we banded over 1,000 chicks this spring.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Bob Zinn does that too.
Bob's the bander. Bob bands a lot of birds, and his banding partner Dennis, he's a new bander, but he's probably the top bander in the state. He's got a zest for it, man. He goes after it.
I met Dennis.
Did you?
Yeah, he came by and saw us at Trout Lake when we were up in the UP. He stopped in last week and introduced himself, and I spent some time with Dennis.
Terrific bird hunter, conservationist, fisherman. I understand from in his past, and Dennis was a trapper too, and I always tell everybody nobody knows the woods better than a trapper, and so if you get to spend some time with somebody that's a trapper, they pay attention to things, in our forest and our woodlands that a lot of people, they just don't even see, they don't notice. And so Dennis is a good outdoorsman. Again, he's a great Woodcock bander, and by all accounts, Michigan Woodcock numbers are very, very stable right now. Woodcock were all throughout the season, very plentiful. And, if you're a Woodcock hunter, grouse numbers were, again, spotty in spots. I think they were up beginning of the year. Some of the people that, I'll say are my cronies, that are out there conditioning dogs prior to the season. And, we thought it was, going to be like a 10 to 15% better year. And I think we were right. I think birds were a little bit better than last year. Last year we killed a lot of juveniles amongst the guys that I run with, which is a good thing. You want to kill juvenile birds, and but the year before, in 17, we pretty much lost an entire generation of ruffed grouse. We had just biblical rains in June, all across the lake states, and that's when all the West Nile virus, if you're not familiar with that, I know you know a little bit about it being here, and Pennsylvania's testing for it, and now there's a 3-state agreement between Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. We're doing a collaborative research 3-year study on it, and results from the first year just came in, and we're finding out that ruffed grouse are being infected with it, but they're surviving with it. So
and we tested birds, not this year, but last year
They
the
did
guys
get-
had kits and we
Yeah.
did tests in the field and mailed them in.
Right. Good. That's important. We did some this year too in my area.
But this year they didn't do that. I don't know if the study maybe is done, or I don't know, but I know we didn't have the kits this year, and nobody said anything about it.
Yeah, I wonder if you got, that there's specific unit areas, like 4-county areas, and I'm wondering maybe you guys didn't go into those counties or something. I don't know. Brent probably would know, but so if you weren't in those counties, they don't want to collect birds that are outside of those kind of collection areas.
Well, and we had a wonderful hunt. I mean, I love going up there anyway.
Right.
It's just so different than what I do on a regular basis. And those men, they're just so much fun to spend time with.
How far can you see up there between, from where you're at? Now I've been to your town. Unfortunately, you weren't there when I was there, but
I was on seeing the mouse, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were. That's right. You're catching some sun. But yeah, so your place you can see forever. And I think we were standing in one spot, and Brent told us, he said, if you look that way you can see Texas, and look the other way you can see Kansas.
Well, maybe not quite, but it's pretty close. I can, from my front porch of my house, at night, on a dark night, I can see the lights, the actual lights of a town that's 18 miles away. And then I can see the glow on the horizon. You can't make out any actual lights, but you can probably got to tell where it's at, of a town that's 45 miles away. So
yeah, I can do that here too. It's pretty dark up here, it's pretty rural. There aren't many folks living up here, so you can see the city lights for the town that's probably takes me 25 minutes to drive to. So I can see that, on a dark night, because there's no artificial light around, no light pollution, I like to call it. So we get those good dark nights when there's no moon.
Well, and my best experience in Michigan, and I've had a lot of good ones, but my favorite of all the experiences I've had up there was, we were at the tavern, one of the two taverns in Trout Lake, on a Saturday night watching the University of Oklahoma play Texas Tech University in college football. And as you can imagine, it was pretty late. And one of the local guys walked in and he said, "Are you the fellas from Texas?" Which, if you know many Okies, that's kind of offensive. So I said to him, "Well, we're not from Texas, but we are from Oklahoma." And he said, "Have you boys ever heard a wolf pack howl?" And of course we said, "No, we don't have any wolves in our country." So when I was walking down here tonight, the wolves were howling out across the railroad tracks. And I bet if you go stand out there, you'll be able to hear them. So we went out and stood on the sidewalk in front of the tavern. And it was late. It was like 11:30 at night. And you have the highway there that runs in front of the tavern. And you have like some street lights and a parking area, and then the railroad tracks, and then you could just see from the street lights the edge of the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as I know, it's forest all the way to Lake Superior. But we're sitting out there, and we were out there probably 5 minutes, and those wolves lit up over across there. It sounded like they were just right there on the edge of the darkness, They were probably a mile away, but they sounded like they were right there.
Right.
And I've spent my whole life listening to coyotes talk to one another at sundown, and there wasn't no mistaking that for a coyote. I can assure you, it was something else now.
I have a rule about that. I always ask people when they say, "Man, I think I saw a wolf," and you hear that a lot in Michigan, and so, well, especially in the UP, and there hadn't been a wolf in the Lower Peninsula, I think, and I'm going to say it wrong. I'll say 90 years or 110 years or something to that effect until a few years ago when the ice bridge formed across the Mackinac Straits, and I think a wolf or two came down into the lower, and a coyote trapper actually trapped one, and So that was the first time a recorded wolf had been in the lower in, like I said, almost 100 years. But anyways, my rule is when everyone says, "Oh, I saw a wolf," and I said, "Well, was it a wolf or was it a coyote?" And if they hesitate, I tell them it was a coyote, because when you see a wolf, you damn sure know you saw a wolf. So there's no doubt. So if you think it might have been a wolf or a coyote, 100% it was a coyote.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, this was 100% wolves, because I mean there wasn't no doubt it wasn't a coyote.
Right.
It's one of those things that, I mean, I tell people that, and some are like, "Oh, that's neat," and then most of them just kind of, "Yeah, nice story," but I will for the rest of my life remember that. That will stick with me forever. So.
Yeah, I was up there hunting. Oh, I had one of my first setters, and she actually got hurt really bad on that trip. It's kind of funny that's what I remember that trip for. And this was in the early '90s, I think, and that day out of camp, we end up anyway. She ended up being okay, but I left early the next morning. The night after she got hurt, we got her to an emergency vet. She was stable and everything, and I just felt bad. I said, "I'm going to leave, at daylight," and I took off that morning, and I saw, I can't remember if it was 5 or 6 wolves around the Gould City area, and man, oh man, it's just, you just don't forget it when you see them. Yeah, they're pretty impressive creatures.
Yeah. I've never laid eyes on one in the years we've been going to Michigan, but
yeah.
I've heard a wolfpack howl. I can say that for a fact. So.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what the Oklahoma guys down here call all my Michigan friends, don't you?
I wouldn't venture a guess.
They're the Michigan Mafia.
Oh yeah.
So like during hunting season, I'll run into somebody, a local person that I know, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I met one of your Michigan Mafia this weekend."
I know most of those guys. I can imagine they're minding their manners and behaving when they're down there. They're pretty good sports.
Yeah, nice men. They've been a wonderful addition to my life.
Good.
I had zero contacts with Michigan. Had nothing to do with grouse hunting or anything like that till I met Brent. And,
yeah.
Now I've had an opportunity to not only go up there, but I saw you in Minnesota and
right.
Shot a grouse in Minnesota and some woodcock. And,
that's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and we went to North Dakota this year. He drags me all over the country. He's a bad influence on me, that boy.
Different country out there in Minnesota. Hey, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's different. It didn't seem as thick.
Right.
Then Brent mentioned this, and I believe it to be true, but everybody seemed to almost be offended when we said it. But I don't think the grouse flushed as hard. They sure weren't as loud coming up as they are in Michigan.
I think they're a little more tame. I don't know why, if it's a different subspecies or the amount of pressure, or we're at Minnesota there for the and so the listeners know we're in Minnesota for the National Grouse and Woodcock hunt that the Ruffed Grouse Society puts on each year. It's an invitation only hunt, and we do a lot of science gathering there. Our biologists weigh age, sex, every single bird killed at the hunt, grouse and woodcock, and so we've got, I think, 25 years of data there. So it's pretty impressive collection of biology. But yeah, I don't know if it's a different subspecies or what it is there. But the grouse don't. I agree with everything you said. I think they're a little more tame. I don't think they flush as hard, but still a great challenge. I mean,
oh yeah,
I don't go out there and put. I don't. As a RGS staffer, I guide out there for a couple days of the hunt, and my dogs are by no means perfect out there. It's So they're still very challenging birds. They're wild birds, and it's a lot of fun. It's not like we're shooting daily limits or anything. It's still a great challenge, no matter where you go.
Yeah.
Rough grouse are they're tough game birds. That's for sure.
Well, and the other thing I'll say about that hunt, and this was my takeaway, was those local people that we met and hunted with, they were really wonderful folks, gracious and giving, and just, quick to laugh, and you just got the feeling that they give you the shirt off their back after they've known you for a couple of hours,
So I got a story for you. So I'm out there last year for the first time, right? And I'm new, I have like 4 hours to scout my hunt area, in the days leading up to the hunt. Couple hours each day, we staff rolls in to get the banquet facility and everything set up, and the merchandise and everything for a few days ahead of all the hunters, like yourself coming out. And so I get a couple hours each day in the evening to go check out my spot, and my spot is ginormous. We are really spread out. You saw that. I don't know if north of town one day, south of town the next, and this year we had would we have 70 hunters, I think, so 35 two-man teams, I think, and so anyways, we're spread out over a wide area, and I run up to my hunt area, and I'm just, I'm feeling bad because my area is so big. I'm like, boy, I got like 2 spots where I moved some woodcock, I got to guide somebody tomorrow morning. So one of the more experienced people out there says, hey, go see, and shame on me for I don't remember his name. I'll say his name was Jim. Go see Jim. He's been a huntsman here for 20 years. He lives nearby. The guy goes out to his truck, comes back with an in-car, like Garmin Nuvi GPS.
Yeah.
There's like 112 waypoints in it for like spots that he hunts, and my hunt area was up there. So he said, here, just give this back to me tomorrow night.
Oh my God, how cool is that?
Are you kidding me? How cool is that?
Yeah.
And now I was kind of randomly just picking spots on his GPS, but I'm like, man, I had to ask myself, would I do that for somebody coming into my area, and talk about giving you, I think that's more impressive than giving you the shirt off his back, giving you a GPS with all his hunting spots marked in it. So
absolutely.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. So the people there are great. And I think it's the same in the bird hunting world. It's, I haven't met anyone that is just, everybody's just great, and just dog men, dog women, people that own bird dogs. They're just super people.
Yeah. That's been my experience.
Yep, mine too.
I do this podcast, and I've talked to several folks that I have never met in person. I just know them, through Instagram and talking to them on the phone. And every one of them is just gracious with their time and has a real affection for what they do with their bird dog.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
And the Ruffed Grouse Society, that hunt was really neat, and I want to talk about that a little bit insofar as if you're a member of the Ruffed Grouse Society and you have an interest in doing that, how can somebody find out more information about that hunt?
Sure. The national hunt is like I said, it's an invite only, and those invitations go out to people that support the Ruffed Grouse Society and American Woodcock Society at the life sponsor level. So that those life sponsors have given a gift of $10,000 or more. So it's a pretty unique event, done for those very generous supporters and donors throughout the years. So you can get in touch with any of your regional directors across the country. You could call RGS headquarters too, if that's something you want to support RGS at that level of donation, we'd be glad to add you to that list, to that invitation list to come out to the national hunt. So it's not a guarantee that everybody gets invited every year. So, it's there's I don't want to say it. There's people that were there this year will get the first invites to go back next year, and so on and so on. So it's but different schedules and everything, and
Sure.
hopefully everybody ends up out there at one time or another, because it really is it's a world-class event. Like I said, the main reason in my mind, being a grouse hunter myself, is the biology. It's the science we collect. It's all the data we gather there. On the business side of it, as RGS employee and as an RGS member and volunteer, it's a terrific fundraiser for us too. So it's a big fundraiser for the society, and we put that money to good use. And this year we talked about a stewardship plan that we're working on with some of the national forests. And last year it was the Chippewa National Forest right there in Minnesota. And we had a big night of giving, and we funded just some projects that are on the ground work that's happening this year. Stuff doesn't happen overnight, especially on federal land, and there's some hoops to jump through. But we got it done, we got it started, and we're marking trees. We're going to cut some trees, this year. I understand this winter, and that came out of last year's hunt. And now this year's hunt, you were there. You saw the amount of giving that night, and
it was pretty impressive.
It's pretty impressive, right? And people, it really goes to show, how much people really do care about, not only just grouse and woodcock, but, just the health of our forest, and everything that lives there. So, and I go so far as I always like to talk to people about clean air, fresh air, clean water. That starts with healthy forest. So it's, but yeah, it's a pretty impressive night of giving. And, now we got a plan in place for, to take to other national forest managers, and hopefully we can get more projects going on other national forests all around the country.
Well, there was a map that the last evening the director showed, where it showed the range, and I want to say density of ruffed grouse over a period maybe of 20 years. It could have even been 30 years. And that steady retreat to the north,
right,
really, I mean, it kind of blew my mind. And the reason why is because I related that to the loss of bobwhite quail habitat down here in the south, and that retreat of the bobwhite quail really to the west. I suspect if somebody were to put together a map similar, that's what you would see, is just the rapid retreat of the bobwhite quail to Texas and Oklahoma, for lack of a better term.
Right, and that map was very accurate. I think President Jones said that, I can't remember where he first saw that map, but one of the years on, I think it was done in 20-year increments, and 2020 was one of the years, and he showed that line on the map, and it was pretty much spot on. Now that grouse are pretty much an endangered species in Indiana, and New Jersey just closed their season, and is Ohio going to be next? I suspect Ohio is going to be next. And Pennsylvania is shortened they've taken their, I believe it's after Christmas season, they've closed that the last several years. So you can see that line drifting north, and I think it was by 2040, it was looking like the tip of lower Michigan and the UP, right? And I grew up hunting grouse in the thumb area 20 years ago. There were enough birds there to keep me interested. I lived in that Flint, Michigan area, and I could be up in the thumb Michigan in about 45, 50 minutes, and there were enough grouse and certainly woodcock, migrant woodcock, coming through there to keep me interested for years. Until I said, well, I'm willing to add another hour drive to probably double my flush rate. So to get up to where I live now, but.
And I mean, my first exposure to ruffed grouse hunting was up in the UP, and I just assumed that
it was the same everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And I understand that probably as you go further south, there's more population and more pressure. But I just assumed that there would be birds all throughout Michigan, frankly.
But still, it's habitat. I have a hunting partner who grew up in southern lower Michigan, so he was, I'll say he's about an hour north of Ohio, and if that. And he's only, maybe he's 10 years older than me. I'm 51 years old. Maybe he's, in his early 60s, and he tells me stories about shooting grouse, woodcock, pheasants, and quail all in the same day in southern Michigan state game areas, but those state game areas were all reverting farmlands, and now we've tacked on 40 years to those days when he did that, and that's mature forest. There's turkeys there, maybe a few deer wandering through. The squirrels don't even want to be there. It's a biological desert. These woodlots and forests are so mature now. We've lost our small game hunting in southern Michigan, and I think you can probably see that in small game license sales too. That we don't have enough introductory hunting activities near these population centers. And I think that's really hurting our license sales. So hopefully if there's DNR state game area managers out there listening, let's get those woodlots back. Let's get some habitat projects going down there and get our grouse and woodcock. There's still a few birds holding out down there, and there's certainly woodcock migrating through. So it would it'd be a good thing if we can get some habitat rocking and rolling in southern Michigan again. I'm sure the Ohio non-resident hunters would appreciate it too. Shorter drive for them.
Yeah, and I can tell you just based on my experiences with Brent and they're at the national hunt, the Ruffed Grouse Society is just a wonderful organization that's kind of leading the charge on those things.
Yeah, certainly in the woods we are. Especially grouse and woodcock, and so many other species benefit from what we do with, the grouse is that indicator species telling you, if you have a healthy forest or not. Do you have enough age class diversity? Do you have enough species diversity? Do you have openings? Do you have brushy areas? Do you have enough sunlight? It's is there too much tree crown? So if there's grouse there, you've got a nice healthy forest.
Well, and you'll appreciate this story, Scott. The second day of the national hunt, we were hunting some private property that our huntsman was gracious enough to allow us to access, and we're walking down this path, and the young man says to me, "There's a drummer. Did you hear it?" And I'm like, "I didn't hear anything." And so we walk another, and I of course read about grouse drumming and heard my friends from Michigan talk about drummers, but it had never been able to really identify that I was hearing that conduct. Mm-hmm. And so we walked maybe another 50 feet, and then I hear this noise, and you've been down here, so we have all these pump jacks around, and what it sounded like was one of those little 2-cycle motors that are attached to a pump jack and they have like an electric starter that kicks them on because they don't run constantly. They only run at certain times of the day, and so you'll hear them out here. It'll go pop 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 pop.
Exactly what it sounds like.
You know, and so I hear that, and the kids. I look at him, and he looks at me. He goes, "That was a drummer." I was like, "That is so cool!" And I heard it 3 more times that afternoon. And of course saw drumming logs, and I'd seen drumming logs in Michigan, but there was a bunch of them there where we were at in Minnesota, and that was just, I mean, to lose that in forests, that in and of itself, and I'm not talking about the hunting, I'm talking about that animal engaging in that behavior. That is so special, and it deserves people to pay attention and try to preserve it the best that we can.
Right. Right, and you feel it sometimes more than you hear it. That concussive beating of those grouse wings, that it's such a low tone. Sometimes that thump 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 thump, as it comes up, and that crescendo, and then it falls, and it just, you feel it sometimes. I think in your chest. Maybe I don't know, in your stomach more than you hear it sometimes, I think.
And probably grouse hunters feel it more.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, right. I get what you're saying. Yeah. I have a bird just south of me here. I can stand on the back porch of my house, and we have a woodcock singing ground just to our east, and we can hear a bird do the sky dance, painting, and the twitter of his wings each spring, and then we get to listen to that for a few weeks, and then not long after those woodcock come back and start their courtship ritual, we hear the drummers fire up down in the little lowland, little swampland down to our south. So it's pretty cool. We get to hear the woodcock doing their thing, and then hear a grouse drumming, and when the weather's nice in the spring, and you're just starting to open your windows back up for the spring and summer, and we can hear that guy going. I mean, you wake up in the middle of the night, you can hear him just beating his brains out.
And he's saying, "Hey, Mama, here I am."
Yeah, letting the ladies know he's open for business. Right.
So, and I mean, kind of on that positive note, if I'm a young guy or an old guy or whatever I am, and I live in Michigan, and I'm thinking I may want to get into bird hunting, what's the best way to kind of get started with that, in your opinion?
Well, you get yourself a fine English setter.
You boys and your setters.
I got a couple white ones laying here next to me. No, you just, it doesn't take much. That's what's so great about grouse hunting. You can, I'm a heathen. I hunt with an autoloader. Grab your H&R single shot. Grab your Mossberg pump. Grab your Parker side by side. It doesn't matter. Grab a gun. Put on some hopefully waterproof boots. The old saying, you got to get your feet wet to kill grouse. So get you some good waterproof boots, and maybe some chaps, and go walk through the thick brush. It's pretty easy, but it's not easy. That's what makes it so rewarding. And I think that's why the people that really stick to it and really become diehard grouse hunters, they really are attracted to those things that they have to work for. If it came really easy to them, they would probably do it once and quit. And but grouse hunting, like I said, grouse hunting's tough, but the good thing is woodcock hunting, I think, is a little easier, and woodcock can be a little more plentiful at times. They're certainly a little easier target for a bird dog to handle, and so you get a lot of overlap there between grouse and woodcock and their cover types that they utilize, and so it's when before the woodcock migrate out of the area for the season, it's hard to do one without the other. So
yeah, and a grouse is a tough species. A ruffed grouse, At least the ones I've hunted in Michigan are a tough bird to kill. Everything has to go correctly.
And when I say grouse, that's what I mean, ruffed grouse. I'm kind of a one-trick pony in that regard. I'm a ruffed grouse guy, and so when I say grouse, I mean ruffed grouse. But it's they can be tricky, and it takes a lot of hard work to really figure them out. And then the day you think you got them figured out, well, go out tomorrow and see if you still got them figured out. So it all changes, but yeah, it's that easy, for somebody that's a beginner, just grab a gun, buy yourself a license. There's some great apps online. There's some great phone apps now. Michigan Hunt, MI Hunt, is a great app where you can just punch in, you can do forest inventory searches. So you can find public lands with aspen, probably in the 10 to 20-year-old age class. And if you got a little bit of conifer cover nearby, some lowland deciduous cover, which is, you're going to get your little swampy creek bottoms and stuff, that's the place to go. And I'd steer beginners towards state land. Now I live on the edge of a national forest, the Huron National Forest. But and we do hunt the national forest, and there is some good hunting on the national forest. But if I was a beginner and I wanted to stack the odds in my favor, I would stick to state forest lands. The Michigan DNR does a great job, in my opinion, of managing our forest. And there's a lot of early successional, early growth forest, which what the grouse and woodcock are need for habitat to survive. So stick to that early growth forest, state lands. And I'll tell you a little secret. This is my secret. I tell everybody, if you're going to a new area for the first time, pick up a snowmobile trail map.
Oh, that's good advice.
That's my secret. Pick up a snowmobile trail map. Go into any hardware, gas station, whatever. Find a snowmobile trail map, because those snowmobile clubs, they don't have any money. So they're making trails out of old logging roads. So those trails are going to lead you into some cuts, to some recent timber activity where the forest has been disturbed in the last 10 or 15 years, and they just took advantage of a logging road and made it into a snowmobile trail.
Oh, that's great. That's great advice.
So just kind of get your snowmobile trail map, then get your MI Hunt, on your computer. Kind of overlay those two.
Get your setters.
Get your setter.
You don't have to have a double barrel shotgun. But
Nope. A pump. Over and under, whatever. I'm an over and under auto guy myself, but get you open chokes, some nice 7.5 or 8 shot, and you'll be all set.
And here's my shameless plug for the podcast: join the Ruffed Grouse Society, and you'll find somebody that'll take you hunting.
Oh. Well, yep. Thanks for doing my job for me. Yep.
Yeah. So, and this is maybe a similar discussion, but I think a little bit different. If I own some bird dogs, say, and I live in Oklahoma, and I think my dogs are pretty swell on bobwhite quail, but I want to come to Michigan and see how they do on ruffed grouse. That is not an impossible thing, is it?
Oh, no. Yeah, come on up. Sure.
I think people, and I would be worried just from the outside looking in, that maybe my dogs wouldn't be able to figure out the game. But now that I've seen it done for 5 years, I think my dogs would do fine. First couple of days they'd struggle, but once they kind of figured it out.
That's what I was, the same thing with our dogs coming down there. It's drier. It takes them a day and a half to figure it out. Like you said, first couple of days, and then they settle in. They figure out how far off they need to stand off the birds and stuff. And I think the hardest thing, for guys like from Kansas or Oklahoma or, any of the prairie states is just having their dog keep track of them. There's so many echoes in the trees that when you get in the woods, you get in that tighter cover. If you're a person that calls to your dog a lot or handles your dog a lot, That dog, there's a good chance that the dogs get confused. That sound bounces around a lot in the trees. I mean, we even, we go through it, raising dogs in the woods. Some dogs just hear better when you're calling right at them. And then some dogs, when you call in the direction you want them to go, because they hear that echo coming back off those trees. And that's an old field trialer thing. They always sing to the front.
Sure.
Because that dog hears that echo coming back off the trees, and that's the way they go. And so, and dogs are individuals. Some like it right at them, and some like you call them to the front. So, I think that's probably the biggest thing, guys coming from the prairie, is just the dog handling, because certainly the dogs can handle the birds.
Yeah, with GPS collars these days, a guy ought to be able to take their dogs out in the forest, and the dogs will figure it out. They'll figure that game out, and you can keep track of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not nearly as dense and thick and impenetrable as what it appears initially.
No. Yeah.
That's been my experience anyway.
Right, that's I think we as beginning grouse hunters, we're all kind of aspen junkies, and boy, I don't know, I probably spent about 15% of my year in pure aspen stands, maybe 20%. I hunt a lot of just edgy, dirty bottom stuff now, that is really diverse. It's not too many pine trees. I hate hunting pine trees. It's you just can't see. You can hear them, you can't see them.
Yeah.
And but I like to just stay in that stuff that's got good ground cover. When I was a new grouse hunter, I always spent my time walking around looking up. I was always like, how old are these trees? These trees are too old. They won't be in here. And you're just you read everything, right? And you're like, I got to be in 10-year-old aspen, and and then I learned no, it's looking down is what's important. That grouse would rather walk than fly. I think Gordon Gillian said it. He wrote Grouse of the North Shore. He is the great rough grouse biologist, and he said a grouse in flight is a grouse in trouble, and so a grouse would rather walk anywhere before it would fly. So you got to have that nice dirty bottom, those brush piles and weeds, not unlike a pheasant or a quail, right? They all like that little weedy corner.
That's right.
Someplace where the herbicide didn't touch, in the corner of the bean or the weed or the cornfield, right? So
yeah, where that old coyote can't get into very easy.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what my bobwhite quail like.
Yeah.
And it's funny listening to you talk about grouse habitat. 5 years ago, that was a foreign language to me. I'd be sitting here going, I don't have a clue what he's talking about. But now I understand. Now, as you're talking about the aspen groves, and I can see it in my mind's eye what you're describing. Right. Which has been a wonderful growth for me. I mean, I've really enjoyed learning that stuff.
And for people that haven't, been to the Lake States or, walk through an aspen forest, it's aspen is just a, it's a wonderful species. It regenerates, by root suckering. So when you cut it, and it is very shade intolerant, which means it needs full sunlight to regenerate. So, I think 30, 40 years ago, clear cutting got a really bad rap, by environmentalists and everything. And, but clear cutting is not a dirty word. And, clear cutting should be thought of as regenerative, as a rebirth to the forest. You're giving new life through the forest. You're not destroying it by cutting those trees down, because if you've ever seen, good soil aspen regeneration, if you get in there and cut that aspen before it gets too old, before it loses its vigor, get in there, 50 to 60-year-old aspen, while it's still got its life in it, and you cut it and you give that soil full sun and warm that soil temperature up, boy, oh boy, you're talking about a lot of stems per acre. So it's right. Gene Hill, I think, called it, trying to shoot sporting clays in a broom closet.
That's exactly right.
So
My
you
brother-
get in that stuff, and it's great deer browse, right? The deer need it that's what gets the deer through the winter, is some of these young clear cuts. It's great woody browse for them, so.
Mark, my brother, who's been up with me, says that he knows how to tell good grouse habitat. It's when you're in woods that a fat man can't walk through.
I always say if you're my buddy Frank calls these Grushisms because I got all these little sayings for him while we're hunting, and I'll go along if my hat gets plucked off my head, and I'll be like, "Oh, get ready, we must be in a good spot." My hats get knocked off my head, so yeah.
Well, talk to me about your adventures in Oklahoma. Of course, I've got a soft spot in my heart for bobwhite quail, and I want to hear about your trip down here.
Well, it couldn't have been better. That's why I said I'm never coming back. No, I'm just kidding. It was a fantastic trip. Brent's a great host, and he's a friend of mine. First before I say he was a host of mine to hunt down there. He's been a good friend for many years, but it was just the weather was perfect. It wasn't too windy. I think that's what you fight, that wind down there. And speaking of hospitality, the people in your town were just they were super. I mean, we walked into the grocery store there, and I think the owner was there, and he knew Brent, and it was just the exchange, the laughter and everything, and they were very, very gracious to having us there. The Michigan Mafia, as you say. So it was a lot of fun. We're sorry we missed you there, but we saw some birds. We saw some cattle. It was not unlike grouse hunting. You start out and you're kind of focused. It's a new game for you, and bing bang boom, and then you think you're on top of the world, and then the bobwhite quail gods let you think about it the next day, and how did I miss these things? There's no trees,
That's right. You can actually see a bird down here.
Yeah. What always gets me about, and I had been to Kansas. I've been in pheasant hunting in Kansas, and we were targeting pheasants, but you come across a covey of bobs once in a while, and the first time a covey of bobwhites that I ever seen a covey flush, I actually killed one. I got a shot on one and killed it. And
boy, you don't know how rare that is.
Yeah, and it was the mother of what ended up being the best dog I've ever had. I was out there with a gentleman who's become a great mentor of mine, and I bought my first 2 English setters from him, and we're out there, and she's on point, and she's kind of pointed with a flat tail, but boy, her tail was curled right up, and we're like, oh, this is something different, but what surprised me, and still to this day surprises me, is how much noise that little bird, that group of little birds, I should say, makes when they flush.
Yeah.
It's, a grouse makes a pretty thunderous, if they're close to you, they can startle you, right?
Oh yeah, it sounds like a jet going on.
Oh yeah, but boy, when that covey of bobwhite quail get up, holy cow! Now that's thrilling to me, and I still, last year when I was out there, I still can't get over how much noise they make. It is so cool.
And I've shot bobwhite quail most of my adult life, and I've seen it, Lord, hundreds, if not 1,000 times. It still makes my heart go pitter-pat, watching a dog go on point and seeing that covey get up off that dog's point, just, nothing makes me happier, I don't think.
Now, what's your gun setup? Can we talk about that for a minute?
Sure. Yeah, for bobwhite quail.
Yeah, I was second-guessing myself, about halfway through the trip out there. I kind of had my shooting was good, and then it went in the dumps, and then it came back a little bit before I left. But, how's your gun set up for bobwhites?
Well, and I shoot most generally a double barrel, and my right barrel, it's a double-triggered gun, and my first barrel, which would be my right barrel, will be open-choked, and my left barrel will be I mean, it'll be as open a choke as I own. So cylinder.
20 gauge. 20
yes.
gauge. 20 gauge. Okay.
I shoot 7.5s. I've got a friend there in Michigan that actually hand rolls me some 7s, which I really like. But when I shoot off the shelf shells, I'll shoot 7.5s. And then my second barrel will be a little bit tighter. Later in the season, I'll go to like a improved, but early I'll do cylinder and improved cylinder. So I like open chokes on my bobwhite quail. I rarely shoot at birds that are more than 25, maybe 30 yards away. I just don't take those long crossing shots at 40 yards that a lot of guys will waste lead on. And if a bird gets up wild that far out, I just let it fly off because,
right. See, that's hard. That's hard for a grouse hunter because it's like, man, if you can see them, you can kill them. Because if they're 30 yards from you in the grouse wood, you can't see them anymore. So
yeah, that's right.
Right, so it's kind of that was an adjustment for me down there too.
Well, and of course, Pike, a bird gets up, he'll blow through all 5 shells and fast he can pull the trigger. He shoots more ammunition in a trip than I shoot all year long. I tell people, because I get asked a lot, what's the secret to hitting them? And I mean, you just got to see them. And you may not believe this, but I think guys that hunt quail a lot would tell me that it's true for them as well. I often know the sex of the bird before the dog brings it back to me. So I'll know if it's a hen or a cock bird before the dog brings it to me. And if I'm shooting birds and I don't know their sex before they're coming to me, I'm missing more birds than I'm hitting.
Wow, that's interesting. Nice. That's interesting. I like that.
What that tells me is that when I'm focused, when my eyes are focused on that one single bird, and I can see it well enough to know its sex in flight, then I'm going to hit it. And when I'm not seeing birds for whatever reason, whether it's an absence of concentration, whether it's too far away for me to be able to tell, whatever it is, I don't shoot nearly as well.
See, now I couldn't do there's no way, it was really my first time down there, really targeting quail. And the funny thing for me though was I bet 85%, 90% of the birds I shot were all cock birds.
You were drawn to that white.
Something in my mind drew my eye to that white. Mm-hmm. And now there's no way, I was picking them out. I'm just, I'm picking a bird out, but I don't know what it was. It was to me.
Yeah,
but
something drawing your eye.
Yeah, I mean, something in the back of my brain saw that white, I think. And
you probably, this will make sense to you as well. On a covey flush, if 2 guys or 3 guys are shooting at birds that come up and they've been pointed, so guys have been able to spread out and get ready, and then the birds get up in a bunch, there's a high likelihood that at least 2 of the guys will shoot the same bird. And it's not the first bird up.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the first bird up flies off, but there will be a bird get up that for one reason or another looks like an easier shot, and both guys will shoot that bird. And it happens with a frequency that's pretty amazing. And again, it's something about the way that bird comes out of the cover that's drawing that shooter's eye and causing them to focus on it to the exclusion of the other birds. And so it gets hammered while the other birds fly off into the sagebrush.
Yeah.
And I just tell people that if you start trying to see the bird really, really see it, you'll shoot better. And I think this is one of the reasons that that's true. Wing shooting to me is a lot like shooting a basketball. I don't know if you played basketball when you were a kid, but if you think about shooting a basketball, about making a basket, you miss. But if you just do the thing you've done 1,000 times before, then that ball go in the hole more often than not.
Right.
And with quail, with shooting quail, wild quail, if you're thinking about hen, cock, hen, cock, hen, cock, and you're looking,
lead. Yeah. Is this 2 feet of lead, 3 feet of lead? Yeah.
You're not thinking about any lead. You're not thinking about your gun mount. You're not thinking about where your feet are. You're not thinking about getting your cheek down on the stock. You're thinking about, is that a hen or is that a cock? Oh, it's cock, bang. You'll hit that son of a gun every time, or almost every time. And it's because you're not thinking about what you're doing, and you're letting your lizard brain drive your reflexes instead of trying to think it out too much.
Right.
That's true for me. I can tell you that when people start giving me shooting advice, that usually causes me to have a slump. So feel free to disregard my advice.
Yeah, I think I shot too many targets one summer. And that happened to me in the grouse woods. It took me, probably 2 or 3 weeks to really, just see the bird, shoot the bird. I was thinking, what's the angle of departure? Is that a 2-foot lead, 3-foot lead? And you start thinking about stuff like that, you're going to miss.
Yeah.
So.
And Brett would always say, oh man, these grouse, they're tough to kill, and you got to really be a shot to kill grouse. And me and my buddy Jason, we go up there in 2016. We both end up killing 3. I may have even killed 4 grouse on my first trip up. And I was like, ain't no thing. They're pretty tough, but ain't no thing.
Well, not for a quail hunter. I
haven't killed 3 grouse since then.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you here, so you should have let me cut you off before you said that.
Yeah.
But back to the Minnesota, the national hunt, some guys from Texas came up, I think, last year, and great dudes and just super fun guys. I got to know them a little bit more this year, and you might have met them this year. I'm not sure, but they came up, and they, there's divisions out there where, they came up and they won the division they were in. And they were really good target shooters too. You could tell that they shot a lot of targets, really comfortable, just shooting targets, moving targets, and everything. And it was told to me that they had not seen a grouse nor a woodcock before the first day of the hunt last year, and they ended up winning their division. So I mean, it's just, I guess they'd shot enough quail that, a moving target's a moving target. And, well, a lot of it is once you're over the excitement of the flush.
Yeah.
And, it goes back to what I said about the noise the cubby rise makes and that thunderous flush of a grouse, and once you've seen enough of both, it just, the thing I noticed with people that miss ruffed grouse is they'll miss 2 shots when they should have taken 1 shot in between the first shot that they rushed and the second shot that was too late. There's more time there than you realize. And, it's fractions of a second, but it's still, you don't need to be, it's not like a gunfight at the OK Corral. It's not, you're not winning drawing a gun here. It's just see the target and shoot the target. So,
well, and I can tell you, this is again just my experience, that the more I worry about killing a bunch of birds, the more I get myself in an attitude where it's just vital that I kill a limit, and I'm kind of a competitive guy. So like if Brent and I are out hunting quail and I've got 5 in the bag and he's got 6, then, man, my shooting goes downhill fast because, I'm trying to get it done, and so I push things and I don't. But but when I go out by myself, just me and the dogs, I shoot so much better, especially when I'm not worried about even killing a bird. I end up killing more birds when I'm trying not to than I do when I'm working really hard at doing it. So.
Yeah, I've we kind of have a saying, in the grouse community that, once guys get, it's a hierarchy of a hunter. It's the same for everyone: pheasant hunters, quail hunters, grouse hunters. You go through the bag limit stage, and then it's the gear, and then it's got to be about the experience, and then it's mentoring, and then what's your legacy going to be? And I think as you get older, and we have a saying that I'm not as angry at them as I used to be.
Yeah. And I'm just not.
So me either. I went out yesterday. I'm actually on vacation this week, and I thought I was going to grouse hunt all week, and it's been, near single digits at night, and we got 7 inches of snow the other night, so it's, walking the woods is a little tricky. Not impossible, but, not fun in the cold either. And driving out, I saw a group of 5 grouse. You can see them just, once you recognize that little football shape of a puffed up grouse on that white snow. I was looking off through some tag alders, and boy, there's a grouse there, and I just kind of creeped forward a little, and there's another one, and then there was a drummer, I assume was a drummer. There was a grouse standing there all fanned out with his neck rough, that the ruffed grouse is named after, those neck feathers all plumed out, and his tail fan all fanned out, and there was 4 grouse sitting in the snow around him, and I just thought, man, that is so cool, and then I went and hunted 2 quick spots and flushed 3 birds and never got a good look. Didn't get any good dog work either. But, it was just like kind of took the zest out of me after seeing that. I was like, dang it. Now I don't want to, I really don't want to go shoot one now. Just seeing that was such a cool thing, just being out there and seeing that made the day worth it to me.
Bob's in. We were talking about banding. He almost acts like he feels guilty when he kills a woodcock.
And you don't dare shoot a woodcock in areas where you band.
Yeah.
You would feel really bad if you shoot a bird you held in the spring and put a band on. I know I would anyways. And I think a lot of banders feel that way. They kind of stop shooting woodcock after they start banding.
Yeah, so, he'll still shoot one every now and then, but he doesn't shoot them like he's sure not mad at him. I can tell you that without any doubt.
Me too. I don't hardly shoot any of them anymore.
So, are you going to come back to Oklahoma anytime soon?
Well, we'll see. So there might be something in the cards for December.
I'd love to spend the day hunting with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd enjoy that.
And
if I sure have a good time down there last year.
And if I get back up your way, I'll look you up.
Okay, that's a deal.
Well, I would tell you, Scott, we are past my hour. Did it feel like we talked for an hour?
No, it feels like it's been about 10 minutes.
I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you being willing to share your expertise and your knowledge with folks. Everybody I've met from Michigan is much like you, gracious and warm, and have a strong hunting culture. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, and I enjoyed the time, Ryan.
Right, like 10 foot in front of him, between me and him. You see him? We're going to shoot him. Hey! Hey! That was freaking cool!